Well, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is set to meet with Ukrainian and Turkish presidents today. The trio will hold talks in Lviv to discuss the situation at a Russian-occupied nuclear power plant in eastern Ukraine, as well as a possible political solution in the ongoing conflict. Guterres will also visit the port city of Odessa tomorrow, where critical grain shipments have resumed. So for more on the latest in Ukraine, let's bring in senior foreign correspondent Charlie D'Agata, who is in Kyiv right now. So we have a few different things to talk about, Charlie, but let's start with the shipment of grain. Turkey had sort of placed itself in the middle of these negotiations. These ships have to go out with grain. They have to come back in with nothing else. No weapons or anything else returning. And now I just, quickly looking at some of the news, I see there's some accusations of stolen grain. How are things going and how important are these conversations about the grain supply?
Well, they are critical, Anne-Marie, for a number of reasons. First of all, we have to address the global food crisis. This is Europe's breadbasket. This is where a great majority, Ukraine and Russia, where a great majority of grain comes from and is exported. And we have a backlog of 22 million tons of grain here in Ukraine that need to be shipped out. And we are headed toward the autumn, toward the fall, where the harvest is about to begin again. We've been driving in the east and the south. We've seen, sunflower fields, these grain fields, and corn and wheat and barley. But when you go to the warehouses, they are already packed full. So you've got the silos that are full of grain. You've got 16 or so cargo ships that need to be moved out. Those are moving out. And then there's a backlog. So yes, it affects the world food prices. It affects the world global food crises, especially in parts of the Middle East and Africa where it's needed most. But this is also revenue that needs to come into this country. This country is on its knees economically because it's in the middle of a conflict. So they need to get these grains out. They need to get this food out. They need to get the revenue in. And that's why Turkey, as you said, that's the pinch point, is such a critical partner. And it not only needs to continue, but it needs to be sped up. The Russians, at the moment anyway, are playing ball, keeping those ports open, places like Odessa, to make sure that that grain keeps flowing. But that's why these conversations are taking place, because they're critical to Ukraine, critical to the world.
And then another big topic on the table and a big area of concern is the situation at a Russian-controlled nuclear power plant in Ukraine, Zaporizhzhia. Hope I said it right. There is concern about whether or not the Russians will choose to shut it down, whether or not it could come under attack. Just tell me what the situation there is right now. What's the latest?
Well, sadly, Anne-Marie, it's just been ratcheting up. So the recent shelling that's happened there, there's been sporadic attacks in and around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. We were there a few days ago, not at the power plant, but just across the river, which is about as close as you can get. That's Russian-held territory. The Ukrainians say that this is being used as a compound by the Russians. They're launching attacks from there. They're storing ammunitions there. It has essentially become a military base as far as the Ukrainians are concerned. And we witness for ourselves the towns around those places. And we're talking about like 3, 5 miles, 10 miles away that are getting attacked from those areas. So the Ukrainians feel justified that they are allowed to attack what is essentially a military zone at Zaporizhzhia. But as the international community has pointed out, and part of what these talks are all about, is that you can't have a combat zone over a nuclear power plant, Europe's largest nuclear power plant. And this morning, the spokesman for the Russian Defense Ministry said there are more attacks that have been happening in the past 24 hours. And what's really worrying here, we're here, we're in the backyard of something like this happening. What more people are concerned about is if something critical happens at that plant. It is a modern plant. Those reactors are designed to withstand whatever may be coming in. But when you start shutting down the infrastructure, the cooling parts of that plant, backup, the electricity, the generators, then it really is an issue in terms of cooling the radiation there. And what's really concerning here, and what the Ukrainians are worried about, is a sabotage attack. And you might think, well, why would the Russians do that? Well, it is a form of nuclear suicide, whether the Ukrainians are shelling that plant or the Russians were to trigger something. What's concerning here is they've been sort of specific. The Russian Defense Ministry saying within the next 24 hours, they actually said tomorrow something might happen, because they're addressing the ratcheting up of attacks from the Ukrainian side, but they hold the plant. They are fully capable, if there were to be a sabotage attack, they're the ones who have the access to the plant. So you've got the Ukrainians are saying, let's make this a demilitarized zone, which would mean the Russians withdrawing from the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The Russians are saying, look, we would allow inspectors in here, but it's coming under shelling. It's dangerous. So we have an impasse with both sides facing a potentially catastrophic event.
Well, I don't know if the talks today could make much of a difference because Russia's not actually at the table, but Turkey is, and the president of Turkey seems to be one of the few world leaders that, willing to talk to Vladimir Putin. Charlie, thank you very much.